Let's go to William F. Jasper first. William, what is it like for you, for, 2 decades or so, writing about the New World Order or longer, and being laughed at when you had all the source documents, now to just, it's all right out in the open?
Well, it is, Alex, but they're still openly denying it. When you bring things like this up in venues like here at Della Center, where I am right now, Della Center is the place where they're holding COP15, the climate summit. And right now, Alex and I are standing here in the media center, which is where all the so-called journalists are gathered, several thousand. And we have, banks and banks of tables of people filing stories all over the world. And they're all in denial. They won't even talk about ClimateGate, let alone about the New World Order or global governance, even though they are quoting these guys regularly. They deny that there's any significance to these terms.
What do you call that psychologically? It's like they have a psychological compulsion or implanted idea, because for 20 years they said it didn't exist or longer. Now that they admit it, they still can't report it. I mean, there's Schwarzenegger, there's Ban Ki-moon. They're all up there calling for planetary regimes, global government, and I've had national reporters here, 5 or 6 of them in the last month, and I play them clips of this, and they say it doesn't exist.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a form of psychological schizophrenia or just an inability. They've self-censored themselves so that they will not think through what it is they're hearing and witnessing with their own eyes. There have been almost nothing, no people here that I've seen that have asked about ClimateGate. We tried today, Alex. We got it on video. It's going to be going up pretty soon here. Alex was able to corner Representative Markey, the Markey-Waxman bill in the House of Representatives for the all of this climate nonsense. And he asked him about ClimateGate. He just kind of passed right over it, wouldn't answer the question. And
well, stay there. William F. Jasper, the editor of the New American Magazine, there in Copenhagen with his cohort, Alex Newman. He's going to break down what he's witnessed over there in the nest of globalists. He is in the heart of the disease. William F. Jasper, senior editor of the New American Magazine, investigative reporter, author. He attended the 1992 Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro and exposed the global authoritarian agenda being proposed to the planetary environmental regulation. Nobody deserves more credit exposing the fake green agenda to establish world government than the New American, and chief among them, William F. Jasper, who I ran into in 1999 at an urban warfare martial law takeover drill in Northern California, or in Central California in Oakland. It was interesting running into him at that event. He's got Alex Newman, who also writes as a freelancer for the New American with him. They're on the same phone. We'll go to him in a moment. But we were talking about how they're denying there's global government while they're announcing that there's global government. We have the treaty here that actually says it's meant to shut down the third world and starve these people to death. They sold the third world as if it was some communistic experiment to give them free goodies. But just like Russians who believed Lenin, all they found out was they were going to slave camps. So let's talk about what you're witnessing there on the ground, what's behind this movement. Maurice Strong, who you got to see in person, say in Rio de Janeiro, we want to destroy the industrial society, what their goals are, who they are. Explain to people who think that leftists and communists are grassroots what's really behind that. And just break it down for us, William F. Jasper.
Well, Alex, there's so many things that we see going on here, but one of the most striking things is that I've written about for many years, particularly since Rio de Janeiro. We're seeing now the culmination of an effort that was begun there. We know the name now NGO, non-governmental organizations. Back then, 17 and a half years ago in Rio, that was pretty much a newly invented term. But Rio was the first launch pad of the NGOs as a revolutionary parliamentary movement.
They're really just UN spies that take over your local town.
Well, yes, in all different kinds of areas. Of course, mostly with the Earth Summit, and with this one, we're talking about environmentalists, so-called environmentalist organization. At least that is the pretext that they use. They feign concern for all things naturefold, the earth, the sky, the feathery, furry little creatures, etc. Of course, many of the true believers, the foot soldiers out there, they do believe all this. But the people at the top, the Maurice Strongs, the David Rockefellers, the Stephen Rockefellers, the George Soros, etc., who are funding all of these things and organizing and launching all these different groups, they have another agenda in mind, which is to use concern for the environment as a means of taking over more and more control of our economy, control of all aspects of our lives. Well, in Rio de Janeiro, we had around 20 to 30,000 different NGO activists arrive there. And what was different there in Rio from today is, in Rio, all of these activists arrived there. This was part of the rent-a-mob that the UN had brought there with all of its influence and money.
That makes the UN look moderate. The UN is like, we're only socialists that want to tax you at 20%, and then all the communists waving red flags, literally. In fact, we'll roll some of that video in the background. They're calling for total government, destruction of all capitalism, so that allows the UN to look more moderate.
Well, that's one of the functions. You certainly have a lot of the NGOs performing that function. Then you have other NGOs that take the more moderate socialist position. That is, we're very reasonable. All we're asking for is what is fair for in this case, Mother Earth, etc. And so you have a push-pull effect going on there. But in Rio, they were outside. They had their own village where they agitated from and carried on street theater and parades, etc. And then the UN was interacting with them. Maurice Strong and Gorbachev and Castro would go down to the village and whatnot. But since then, in 95 at Cairo, and then 98 at Rome for the International Criminal Court, and all of the UN summits since then, both environmental and human rights and all of the other summits, they started bringing the NGOs actually into the UN, where their delegates came in almost on an equal footing, or actually a superior footing to elected representatives. Now
and how this works is the UN can then point at their employees and say, these are stakeholders, that's a key word when you hear that, for sustainability. What do the people want? We want world communism. And they go, that's what the people want.
Exactly. This is the charade known as civil society. Every one of these people is called a stakeholder. That is, they hold some kind of stake in all of these goings on here, and they are supposedly representative of some sector of humanity or society. But of course, they're not elected by anyone. They are not accountable to anyone. Their funding is coming from the various governments. The big funders start out being the foundations: Ford Foundation, Rockefeller Foundation, Soros Foundation, etc. And then they've taught these people how to then got on the government dole so that we're paying for it directly, so that the UN, the EU, all the various EU individual governments, the U.S. foreign aid government, the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, are funding these thousands of NGO organizations to the tune really of billions of dollars a year. So they're using our tax dollars, the other taxpayers' dollars from around the world, to fund these people who are working against our interests. And a very good example of that. This was a completely closed, uninclusive, exclusive event here. You didn't see a single one of the major realist scientists or scientific organizations allowed.
Let me interrupt you. Again, William F. Jasper, the editor of the New American Magazine, on with us from Copenhagen, Denmark, in the last 48 hours of this global governance establishing event, because I want to get to not just the structure, but also, are they successful this year in your eyes, or is this a failure, and your take on ClimateGate and your overall view on things. But take Lord Monckton. We interviewed Christopher Monckton last hour, the first hour of the show, and he talked about how he is a House of Lords member. So he had passes in, and the UN said, don't let him in. And when they started roughing him up, so he agreed to leave. When he turned around, the cop knocked him over, busted his head and leg open, and just laughed about it. And so they're now beating up members of the House of Lords. I mean, this guy's a royal, and they're beating him up. Usually the globalists grovel to royalty. Even though he had passes, that's how dictatorial these people are. This happened today.
Well, right. See, I didn't even know about that. He was supposed to be coming here. We were going to interview him right outside Media Center, which is inside the larger Bella Center here where all this is taking place. And we were waiting for him, and his wife ended up calling saying that he had tried to get in, but he couldn't get in. And that was the same with Mark Morano, who has a NGO. He's accredited. He was supposed to have passes. They wouldn't allow him in. Even today, Senator Inhofe came here, Senator from Oklahoma. He's the lead one in the U.S. Congress.